Okay, we are on the Hebrew books. We're on page, I think it's 116. It says on the top Kuf Yud. Sorry, that was last week. Kuf Yud Beis. And we're holding the fifth Midah of Chesed in chapter 5. Also can be found in the Safari English Hebrew version, as per the link posted. So last week we learned about tzedakah. And this week we learn about Achnasas Orchim, about guests, of having guests and applying the idea of guests both in our relationship to Hashem and understanding a little bit what it means to have guests. The sixth one is the Chesed we do with those who've passed away. It's called Chesed Imameis, with the dead, with those who passed away. The seventh one is Achnasas Kala, helping a groom and bride get married. And the eighth one is being a person of peace between couples and friends, like Aaron Cohen. Okay, so we're holding the fifth one on page, I think it's 116 on the Hebrew books. So it says like this: Hachamishis, the fifth attribute of Chesed is Achnasas Orchim, is a person who has guests. Like we spoke last week. Already the difference between tzedakah, charity, and hachnasas orchim, of course, is tzedakah is you're in your space and the other person is in their space, and tzedakah, and you give them tzedakah, you help them, but not necessarily do you bring them into your space. Hachnasas orchim means you welcome in guests into your own home, and that's another level of commitment to bring someone into your home. It's easier sometimes. It's easier to have, I'll pay for your meal, or I'll help you financially, but to bring them into your home is already another level. That's why it's so great, the mitzvah of Achnasas Orchim. And we know that the Baal Shem Tov was tested with Achnasas Orchim before he had the Baal Shem Tov's parents were tested by how they had guests. So having guests is an important thing. So we're going to try to understand what does this mean in our relationship to Hashem, and then go back to how understanding what does this mean. Achnasas Orchim means how we can enhance our own Achnasas Orchim. So he says, Achnasas Orchim, the chesed that a person does in bringing in guests. So we have to figure out how do we integrate that? How do we understand that with our relationship to Hashem? So he says, Heim hatiferes v'hayisod. This is who are the guests. So I just wanted to. I'm not sure how to do this. And could be everyone's seen this already. Hold on. There is a okay, so I'm not sure if you want to share a document. Maybe I could put in the notes here. Okay. Okay, I have to try to figure this out. But I wanted to. Oh, here's the chat. I wanted to show a graph of the midos.
You know how to share your screen?
No, I don't know how to share the screen, but I could post it on the chat. Is there a way to share the screen on Zoom itself?
Yeah. Just like you have a button that says chat, there should be a button that says share screen.
Okay, I see. Hold on. So let me bring up this image. That's just too large. Okay, let's see. Oops. Okay, so share screen. Okay, let's go. Okay, here we go. So you see that? So
I'm not seeing anything yet. Oh, there it is.
okay. So we have this is the breakup of the midos. So we have Keser, which is the crown, which we spoke about. Chachma and Bina is right and left. Underneath is Das. This is the way the midos go in a system. Chesed and Gvur again is right and left. Ferris is right underneath the Das, which is underneath the Keser. Netzach, which is perseverance, Hoid, acknowledgement. Again, if you see it's Chachma, Chesed, Netzach, so those are all to the right, to the side of Chesed. Gvura is, we have Bina, Gvura, Hod, and the Netzach, Hod go into Yesod. So that's all this, the we call the 9 midos. If you're not going to count Keser, if Keser is counted, you don't have Das. If Das is counted, you don't have Keser. That's why the Das is kind of in light color, and that all goes into Malchus. So all the midos have to come into Malchus. Yesod is the final of the masculine midos, and Malchus is the receptacle of everything. Now, Malchus also is directly connected with the crown. So this is the graph of the 10 midos. So you'll see 11, but the reason there's 11 because it depends if you count Keser, the crown is separate or not. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here. All right. So here he says, so what is the guest? The guest is, like we saw in the graph, Tiferes and Yesod are directly in middle. And that goes, those are the guests, that's the because each one of them take in from Chesed and Gvur, the balance. And that is the guests, they have to go into Malchus. Malchus is the person. In your space is to bring in the Tiferes and Yesod of Hashem. So what does that mean? Las Islam beis menucha shenucha bo. What does it mean to have a guest? A guest is that a person has a house to rest. So too, Tiferes and Yesod, which we said, Tiferes is beauty, which is Torah, and Yesod, which is connection, should have a place to rest within you, within a person. So like a person has a guest. So, but there's two definitions of a guest. One definition is a guest, by definition, doesn't live in the house. It's not the guest's house. The guest is a guest in your house. So to Malchus is your space. You're supposed, that's your world. Your world is Malchus. How you're going to do things, how you're going to go about making your life, how you're going to interact with other people, how you're going to serve Hashem. That's your space. Now, the question is, who do you let into your space? Who could be a guest in your house? So he's saying, make Tiferes, Torah, and Yesod connection to Hashem, that they should be a welcomed guest in your house. So even though they're guests, but they're in your space. And he says, they should have a place of rest that they could, a house that they could rest in. And what's the house? Malchus. Kivon shehem, meaning the Tiferes and Yesod, they are holchei drachim b'soid galus lachzar al avedasam. He says an amazing thing over here. When does a person need to have a guest? It means why is the guest not at their own home? Right? When does a person need to be hosted? When you're not home. Because you don't have your own space. If everyone has their own space, there's no concept of achnasas archim. If everyone has where to live, right? If everything's perfect, so if everyone's in their own 4 feet, so when you're going to ever have a guest, so the guest, by definition, the guest has to be a person that's on the road, doesn't have a place to go to, and you're taking them into your space. So what does it mean that the Tiferes and Yesod are on the road? So he says they're holchei drachim. They're people that are on the road in Galus, looking. It says lachzer al avedasam. They're looking for Hashem. They're looking for a place to be. Torah doesn't find a home. Connection to God doesn't find a home. It's like a person that's on a quest searching for something. So it says, so bring them into your home. It means while they're lost in the time of Galus, make Torah and connection to Hashem part of your life. Tzarech lachnisam sham. You have to bring them into your home. It says like it says in the Zohar. It says that the people who are on the road are sichoy, they're talking. The word siach means to speak. That what does it mean to speak? The words of Torah. So this is the idea that we have in the beginning of Pirkei Avos, that a person, there's many ways to analyze Hachnasas Archim. Hachnasas Archim could be an extension of tzedakah. Meaning to say, so we give charity, like I said last week, you give charity, you're giving tzedakah, but you have a distance. You need something, you're traveling, what can I do to help you? But, I'm not bringing you home. Bringing you home is the next step. But the question is how you view that itself. Are you viewing that itself that you're just making space in your home for someone else? or does your home change because you have someone else? Means a person that has a home that is, what do we say in Pirkei Avos? Pirkei Avos says, make your home a place of Torah. People, whenever people want to talk Torah, they should talk Torah near your home. What does that mean? That's changing the definition of your house. It changes what kind of house you have. That your house was possibly before not a house of Torah. And Pirkei Avos teaches us. We learned the first few first Mishnahs of the first chapter of Pirkei Avos. Yosef ben Yozer and Yosef Ish Yerushalayim, they say, make your home a place that when those who want to gather to talk Torah, they should gather in your home. It means it's upgrading your home. It's not that you're making space, carving out space within your home for someone else. Your home changes when you're a person that hosts guests. So he's saying, that the people that are on the road that are talking Torah becomes now part of your house. Your house changes, becomes a house that's a place that's hosting Torah and Yisod, hosting Torah in a place that people that are connecting to Hashem. When I was first in Kollel, so we were, we're just young people trying to start our families. So I remember that the Rabbi Deitch told us that there's an old Hasidic tradition that when you make a farbrengen in your home, it's a skula, it's a remedy for children. Why? Because you're changing your home. It means when you make a farbrengen, a place where people sit and they sing the gunim and they eat a little food and they wish each other well, and so it changes. It's not that you're making space in your home for a farbrengen. Your house becomes a house that has a farbrengen. Your house is a house that people come and talk Torah. So it's not so. Hachnas Zarchim is not about giving someone a corner of your house. It's about changing your house. It's a house that hosts guests, and therefore, what the guests bring to the house, and sometimes it could be in a negative way also. I mean, when I say negative way, it could be that you don't see it, and it's actually a challenge for you to have the guests. Maybe the guests are difficult, and maybe the guests are demanding. But that still doesn't change the fact that this is a house of Achnas Sarchim. When the father, in the tradition that we have about the Baal Shem Tov, that when the parents of the Baal Shem Tov were challenged to see if they're going to be worthy to be parents of the Baal Shem Tov, they were an older couple, Sarah and Eliezer. So the Eliyahu Navi, it says, the tradition, the Sipur Tzadikim say that Eliyahu Navi came, not in a nice way. He came as a very obnoxious guest, knocking on the door, demanding on Shabbos, and they wanted to see if the couple is going to lose their cool and say, come on, enough's enough. Your demands are too much. You're obnoxious. You're irresponsible. You show up in the middle of Shabbos, and they didn't. They were very accommodating. They never broke their cool. And they never changed. They never went off course, because Achnas Sarchim is you're upgrading your home, and it doesn't always have. It's not going to always be because it's a nice situation or they're pleasant guests to have. Sometimes it's unpleasant, but that's part of Achnas Sarchim. Because Achnas Sarchim, again, if you're carving out space, then you say, 1 second, why am I giving space to this person? But if the mitzvah changes things, and here we're not talking about obnoxious guests, we're talking about Torah, we're talking about connection to Hashem. So it says, Shehem hamisgarshim ibateim la'asik b'Torah. So how do you fix the people that are on the road? Is it to bring them in? It says in the commentary. Those people that are traveling, studying Torah, and they come into your house, so they make your house into a house of Torah. And he continues, he says, so he says, he goes back, let me go back again to the translation. He says, I'm going to read the whole thing in the translation. It says, Shazu mitzvah miskayemes b'holchei derech sichoi. This is a mitzvah, achnas zarchim, of those who are on the road, who are siach, who are talking the words of Torah. Shehem hamisgar shimi bateim lasik b'Torah. They, so to say, leave their homes so they could study Torah. The word misgarish means to be separated, or to be thrown out of their home. But they leave their home to study Torah. The great sages that go, or those who study Torah, who leave their home to travel for the sake of Torah. They're going so they could talk the words of Torah. And he says also, as they're walking. It says like Yosef says to the tribes, don't talk too much Torah. You may get stuck on the road talking too much. But the people who make it part of their travels to be an experience of Torah. So when you have guests, you bring in guests that are people of studying Torah again. So that in that way you have an added value. That not only is your house a house of orchim, but also when you have orchim of Torah, it was a custom back in the shtetl, back in Europe, that when a Talmud Chacham showed up to town, people fought to host the Talmud Chacham in their house. Why? Not just because of it's you wanted to be the house that the important person stays by. It upgrades your home. So it's on top of just having the mitzvah of achnas zarchim, which, like I said, doesn't make a difference who the person is. It changes your house to be a house of guests. But also when you're bringing especially someone home, a couple or people or children that are studying Torah, they say there's a famous story. I forget who it was. It was a rabbi, I think, in Chicago, who in the 70s or 60s went to a person, a bank owner. Could be I told this story before. Who was always looking to save Sefer Torahs. But over the war, after the war, a lot of Jewish communities were lost, uprooted, murdered by the Nazis. So there was all these shuls that had Sefer Torahs there. And so this person made it his business to try to find any Sefer Torah that needed help, to be rescued and taken to find a new home in a shul. So this person walks into the bank owner. I don't know who it was, and he says, "I have 2 Sefer Torahs that need to be saved. How much will it cost?" He says the price. So he right away writes a check to save these Sefer Torahs, and after a while, he asks to see what's going on with the Sefer Torah, and so the person brought out 2 Russian children. He rescued 2 Russian children from Soviet Russia in those days and brought them to Chicago to live and to go to yeshiva. They were being persecuted as Jews were then in Russia. And so he said, "Where are the Sefer Torah?" So he brought the 2 children to the bank and said, "These are the Sefer Torah." I mean, the Sefer Torah either could come in the form of a scroll wrapped or 2 boys that are learning Torah. I'm not sure how the banker responded to that, but either way, but that's the idea. The idea is that you bring someone of Torah into your home, it changes your home. And he says, "Vehem," and he continues, "Vehem," when you bring in the guest, shegoyim shir archim oiskim b'tzarchem malchus. And he says when a person does that, he explains in the commentary, when a person brings in the Torah and Yesod into your home, it's not just, you're not doing a favor just for Torah. Like I said, when you bring a guest into your home, it changes your home. So that's what he's saying. They help Malchus. What does it mean to help Malchus? When you bring in, because you bring a Torah into your home, whether it's a person of Torah, or make your home a home of Torah, a home of connection to Hashem. So by bringing in the guests, godliness and spirituality and Torah into your home, it changes your home. It's not that you're being a plate, you're being a receptacle for Torah or giving space to Torah, but like I said before, your home changes. V'chein, he says, Kol ha'isa yichud el hatiferes b'malchus mibchina acheres v'kaveh makom l'teirasai goyrim sh'hatiferes yasem aloynim b'malchus v'chein perish b'tikunim. He goes, anyone. He says, V'chein kol ha'isa yichud shel hatiferes. Anyone who makes the unification and brings tiferes into malchus, connects Torah into the world. What is yichud? When we say yichud means unification. So we have physical unification, and we have the idea of yichud is also connecting levels of godliness. In this case, what's Tiferes and Malchus? When you unify Tiferes and Malchus, you're bringing Torah into your space. You're changing your space. Unification is supposed to give children, right? And what's the children? The children is that you have midos. You have your life changes. So by bringing Tiferes into Malchus, by bringing Torah, and so again, it's almost a level that says that there's more done for the giver than for the person who's given, right? Yoser, more than what the balabas, the person who gives the ani, the poor person gives the person back. Why? Because by performing the mitzvah, the person changes. By giving the tzedakah, the person changes. By hosting Tiferes in your space, you become a person of Torah. Malchus changes. It means what's Malchus? Malchus is the world the way we see it. So either we could separate Torah mitzvahs from our life. It doesn't mean separate totally. You go to shul and you learn Torah, but there are two separate spaces. It doesn't become one thing. Yichud means it becomes one. So what does it mean becomes one? That there's no separation between your Torah and your mitzvahs and your life. It's all, everything enhances each other. Everything upgrades each other. Your life, the purpose. Why do you work? So you could have hosts. So you could host guests. So you could help the shul. So you could give tzedakah. So you could learn peacefully. So you have menucha. You have peace. So that's what it means. That's the yichud. That it says l'chein kol ha'isa yichud el ha'tiferes v'malchus. You unify Tiferes with Malchus. And you make established a place for Torah. It causes Goyim Tiferes Yasim Malonim Malchus. That now Tiferes lives. Malonim means from the word Malone, is like a hotel. Okay, so that's the idea of just hosting. Now, you host someone, you have to feed them, provide for them. That's part of being a host. Sometimes you get a phone call. Can you host? Don't worry, they don't need meals. They have their meals worked out, or they're eating somewhere else. You just need a place to sleep. Now, sometimes Achnosis Archim is just a place to sleep. But in traditional Achnosis Archim included, if you're hosting someone, whether it's for Shabbos or in the week, that person expects that they should be able to eat by you and they should be able to drink by you. So he's going to go into the three things how a person's supposed to treat a guest. One is in food, second is in liquids and drinks, and the third is, we know the famous idea of Levia. Levia means that the main part of Achnasas Archim is not hosting the guest as much as accompanying the guests when they leave. Right? If a guest stays in your house and you welcome them nice, and they say goodbye, and he's like, goodbye, and you let them just walk out, it's kind of giving off the impression to the person, to the guest, that you good riddance. You're happy to get your peace back. You're happy to have your space back. The biggest part of the mitzvah is when you accompany the person, the Levia. Why is that so important? Because it continues. It's brought down. We know that in the mitzvah of Egla Rufa and the mitzvah of the person who's found dead in between two cities, we don't know, or next to the city, we don't know who killed him. So it says that the elders come in and say, we didn't see this person come into our town and let him walk out without being accompanied, because maybe the fact that he was alone or she was alone is why they got killed. So they say that we didn't do that. We didn't leave. We didn't see this person and just leave. Let him or her leave just on their own. I mean, if we would have known that they were guests or they were here in our house, or maybe they weren't even in our city, they just walked by the city. But had they been in our space and we noticed them, we definitely would have accompanied them out. So part of the mitzvah of Achnas Zarchim is not just to give space to sleep or to rest, but of course to feed and to drink, and also levia to accompany the person out. It's brought down in halacha. That's one of the greatest parts of the mitzvah of Achnas Zarchim. So now he goes into those three stages. He says, you have to provide for the guest to eat, to drink, and to accompany them when they leave. You have to give Torah and connection. Tiferes and Malchus, you have to give them food. What is food for Tiferes? It says Me'ain Mashakos is like what it says, very much connected to the month of Shvat that we're going into. Basi Lagania Chosikala. That you come to my garden. That it says Achalti Yarim Divshi Shushefer Roy Lahan Hoga Hatachtein Amispashes Mitzad Gvura Matuka. So he goes, what does it mean to feed Tiferes? So it's brought down in the pasuk. It says, "Achalti yarim im divshi." I ate the honeycomb with the honey. It means I ate my food with sweetness. So the idea of giving food to Tiferes is to sweeten my study of Torah. He goes, that's a shefa haroy lanhaga hatachtoina. This the flow that we should have that goes to sweeten the gevura. Means in Torah we could have the din, we could have, again, we always talked about in the Tomar Devorah, we have the idea of gevura, severity, which is din, judgment, judgmental, all that. And the idea is to sweeten it. And sweetening it is like food, which sweetens a person's, like it says, to eat it with honey, to sweeten the Torah, to make the Torah that you study should be a Torah that leans towards Chesed. So that's the food. The food is that your Torah should be a Torah that brings to more Chesed. That can mean a lot of things, actually. But let's just go further so we could finish this midah. He says, Vashtiya, what does it mean to give drink? So he says there's two types of drink. We learned last week in the parsha of Vayechi that the blessing that Yaakov gives Yehuda is about wine and milk, right? So he says the idea is drinking wine and milk. What is the idea of wine and milk? So he says shu shefa pnimi min hayayin hamashumer. You have the special watched wine. I mean, what's wine? We know nichnas yayin yatzasod when wine comes in, so it allows for the secrets to go out. It means that when a person you want to read the Torah could be studied in a way that's dry. But if you bringing the wine, the Yener Shal Torah, the wine of Torah, is in a way that the Torah should bring out who you really are. And what is a person really? A person has a godly soul that loves Hashem. So but through Torah study is supposed to be a springboard for a person to reveal their love of Hashem. And he says, "Umisoid hacholav hamismatek," and also cholav is white. That sweetens also is chesed. Wine is red. Traditionally, wine is red. So the red wine also represents a little gevura, and that's the wine part. But it also through that brings simcha and also brings out the sod, the avos Hashem. But also we have to whiten it with the milk. He says. So I'm going to read now the beer that I have from the Hebrew books. It says Sharei cholav hu lavan. Cholav is white. V'imkein koilim b'shtia es hadin v'chesed. The idea of the drink is to include judgment and kindness. Hayayin edem moshel adin. The fact that wine is red is towards judgment, and cholav is white is towards chesed. So he says v'rak ezel limud hu toiv. That kind of balance, if a person has wine and milk, again, the balance of chesed and gvura, that's when you're studying is going to be in a healthy way. But im chas v'shalom halimud hu rak mitzad gvura. But if you're only going to learn towards severity, always looking to use Torah as a way to be harsh, this is a little bit of a lesson also. A lot of people could fall into the trap of Torah where there's, just to find limitations, more shiurim, waking up, this many, and there's a lot of things you could get caught up in Torah. Someone once even coined, there's a name for it, where all the shiurim, the limitations of Torah, you can become obsessed with it. And it's not, it has to be a balance. So it has to be, if you're going to go, and also you can be judgmental, find 100 reasons to be upset at someone, 100 reasons why someone did something wrong, 100 reasons why the person's wrong, right? Judgment, Torah is like, the person did something wrong. It says in Torah, right? So the idea is too much red wine isn't good, right? You have to have a balance with the chol of the white. And he says, he says over here that could cause Tiferes to leave. Torah will leave if you're a person who's full of gvura, full of severity. You no longer have a home, right? If you're going to be harsh with your guests, then your guest doesn't want to be in your house anymore. So he says the Tiferes would leave. So therefore, the idea of cholav is to balance it. And that helps with the yichud. Again, he's saying, what does it mean to give your guest drink? Again, make your guest comfortable. Your guest is achnas archim is not just to carve out space for someone, but it's how it changes you. And how it changes you and changes and upgrades your home. You have to make it a comfortable environment. And he says, the kashar tiferes v'malchus, the whole idea is to make sure that it stays connected, Torah with malchus. He calls it Yaakov and Rachel. Yaakov is tiferes, we know, and Rachel is malchus. V'gvura benetzach oy b'hoid. And even if you have gvura, severity, it should be in a way of netzach and hod, which is the functional midas that we learned about before, perseverance or acknowledgement. It says that's why it's brought down the Raya Mehemna. Okay, I'm going to go further. It says, what's the levia? What's the accompanying? So he says, the levia, lahavi atzmei v'nishmasei sham imam b'dyoikan elyoin. He says, l'lavoisam sham oid lahavi shar sfiras sham imam lasis lem levoyateva. He says that the idea of accompanying Torah, mitzvah, and Yesod, Tiferes and Yesod, is that by doing that, he says, to make to change your soul. I'm not sure 100% I understand the idea of Levia, but I think what he's saying is that I think that the very fact that a person accompanies someone when they leave their home, it's another level of a sign of what Hachnas Archa means to you. Again, if you just say this person goodbye, it doesn't really finalize. When you accompany someone, means that you really appreciated the guest to be in your house. And therefore, you don't just let them leave your house. You want to walk out with them, maybe give them something for the road. The very fact that you continue that relationship as they leave the house means it's a sign, not just to them, but to yourself also, of what it meant to have guests. And therefore, he says, when a person has Levia in Torah and Yesod, it makes you a person that could have other things. It brings along with it the other midos, whether it's more, it could mean more chachma, more bina. Maybe if you were limited in your abilities to perform up until that point by showing how much you care about having guests and having a house of Torah mitzvahs, is maybe that will be an opening for more things to happen for you, for more revelation, for more abilities for you to be a person more connected to Torah mitzvahs. And that comes when you accompany it. It means when you show that you wanted, how much it meant to you to host something or someone or Torah in your home, means that you're a person that deserves, that you should be able to, we know that it's a lot of times when a person's tested, it's not that you get tested to get back what you've given. When Hashem wants to sometimes give someone something great, something large, you go through a test sometimes, because by passing that test, then you've shown that you're a person that deserves and can handle a great blessing. Sometimes people can't handle a great blessing, right? So God says this person can't handle this blessing. So you have to, sometimes you demonstrate in certain tests that we go through, that you're a person that can handle a tremendous blessing. So by a person demonstrating Levia, by accompanying a guest outside, when they leave your home, not just when they come to your home, it shows that you're a person that's able and therefore worthy of greater things. That's what he says, that you'll get additional. It says lavisham oid, you should have more. Lahavi shara spheres, the other attributes should come with you also. Lastam levia taiva, and you could all do one great company. You could accompany more than what you've started off with. And I think that's an idea that there's that through really excelling in the mitzvah of Achnasas Archim. And that's why, again, Avram was tested with Achnasas Archim, right? God comes to him, and the three angels come. The Baal Shem Tov, a lot of people have been tested how they treat guests. And sometimes again, if it's Torah guests, it's one thing, but you have sometimes guests that, I heard a story, like an off the record story. When I say off the record, it was written down by someone who heard the story from my father's grandfather, that he said that the Chacham Tzvi, who lived, I think, in Amsterdam, it's a whole story of the Chacham Tzvi with the Rabbi Yonis and Eivshitz, whatever, there was a big fight in Amsterdam in the year 15 or 1600 or so. And the Chacham Tzvi, whatever, he was on the run. The Chacham Tzvi was a great sage in Amsterdam, and he was on the run. And so some person, I'm not sure the details of the story, but basically he was brought into a wealthy person's home and he said, you could stay by me, and my daughter will come, will take care of all your needs. And the Chacham Tzvi was a very demanding guest. And every time the daughter came to the room, he would say, this is not right, that's not right, you're not cleaning my room nice. Like he was a demanding guest. And she went back and complained to her father, and she said, he's an obnoxious guest. So the father got upset. And he went to the Chacham Tzvi and he said, listen, I invited you to my home, but, there's no contract. It's not like you could stay here forever, just, that you have these expectations. And the Chacham Tzvi said, fine, you're right. No, he packed his bags and he left. And the wealthy person felt very bad that he kind of kicked the Chacham Tzvi out. And he ran back and he begged him to come back. And he says, I won't go back. And he said, but I'm going to bless you to be, that you and your family should be rich forever. And if I would have stayed a little longer, then I would have also been able to affect that your family should stay religious forever. And the story goes that was the Rothschild family. So maybe they didn't stay religious, but they were blessed. So he was testing the families. And sometimes you get tested to see if you're a receptacle for a great blessing. And so the Levia, the extra effort a person who's hosting puts into their Achnasas Archim by accompanying a guest when they're ready to leave your home, that maybe, as he's saying over here, the Tomar Devorah, that maybe shows that you're receptive, you're worthy of even greater blessings by demonstrating that kind of care. So he said like this. There is a finish off over here. He says, "Klali shel davar." The bottom line is, the rule is like this: He says, "Klali shel Dav yishtadel b'tzarech hedyet v'chavim v'mizasai." Here, the Tomar Devorah is telling us something amazing. He goes back to general idea of hosting. Says this: a person may say, "Okay, I'm reading all this thing about tzedakah. That tzedakah means giving to this attribute, that attribute. Having guests represents the concept of unifications of Torah and Yesod and connection in my home. And when I'm accompanying the midos. It seems very mystical and Kabbalistic, which it is. So he says, what's the rule of it? The rule is, ishtadol b'tzarech hedyet. Whenever you're engaging a person, a hedyet means a regular person. You're hosting a person. You're giving tzedakah to a person. And you're doing something material. It's right, you're taking money out of your pocket and giving it to someone. You're opening your home to someone to sleep, and you're giving them physical food. This is nothing. It seemingly has nothing to do with what we just studied about, spiritual food and chesed and Devorah and wine and milk. So he says you should do things in the hedyet, in the mundane, the regular, but try to have intention that by you giving a poor person something, or you hosting anyone in your home, that there's something greater going on even outside of your space of what you realize. Means you may think that I'm just hosting someone, and therefore this person maybe is obnoxious, not obnoxious. This person is grateful, not grateful, right? All the parts that we have in dealing with people. But he says, Yechavin, you should be thinking that by doing this, by how we interact with each other is how the midos interact in heaven. And by us acting in ways of kindness, and by us doing things and caring and levi accompanying, is we're affecting how the midas of Hashem are. So he says, like he says, before we eat, he says, a lot of people are careful on Shabbos before they eat, say the kavod Shabbos. What does it mean, the kavod Shabbos? You're eating anyways, but at least integrate with your speech that when you're eating, you're recognizing that there's something greater here. That you're not just eating, you're eating for Shabbos. He says, it's sure. You have to be confident that when you're doing a mitzvah, there's chesed happening in heaven. When you do a mitzvah, and maybe that's going to trickle down, that the scales of life change, right? When sometimes the world needs chesed, right? It comes through us acting with chesed. When Hashem sees us acting with chesed, then Hashem acts with chesed. So he says, you have to be sure that when you're doing acts of kindness, when you're hosting, when you're giving tzedakah, so that's what's happening in heaven. So that obviously we're not there yet. When a person's an expert of all the secrets, we're not experts yet in any secrets. We barely understand the secrets, but at least have confidence to know that that's the way it is. That when you do acts of kindness, like we take our daughter Tali, who's autistic. We take her once every 6 months to a top neurologist here in Yerushalayim. So he's a frum yid, he's top in the world, and he said he believes very much in the spiritual ideas of special needs children, and he showed me a picture that one of his patients, or one of his the children that come to him, made a drawing of 3 exact things, 1 page, but had 3 exact pictures. But one was a skeleton, one was kind of more formed, and one was a full picture. And he says that's the way it is. The skeleton is the way we think. Our life is skeletons. We don't really know what's going on, but there's the same things happening higher. There's much more color, it's much fuller. But when we do things here in this world, there's a lot going on in the higher world. So our doing chesed and our doing achnas archim, he says, muftach, you have to be sure, you have to be confident, and know this for a fact, that when you do chesed, things in chesed are happening up in heaven because of that. He says, and he says something else. And it's also important, it'd be a good idea. Ma'atoiv means it's a good idea. Lahaskir b'fiv, not just to believe it, but to mention it. If you're giving tzedakah, say, chesed's happening in heaven, or the kavod Shabbos kodesh. Remizes kavanah say hanachayna b'shas ma'isa, that say something, word it, that connects what you're doing in the material, that something spiritual is happening. The kaim b'fichel vav chalasaisid, because this is part of the pasuk that says that when you do mitzvahs, it's not just in action, it's in your mouth, it's in your heart, and it's in your action. And that's how he finishes off Perek Chamishi. So again, it's not, these parakim are not exactly necessarily easy, but I think the idea is great, very important, and I think that there's a lot to be learned. So I don't know if you have anyone has any insight or questions on this. I think the last few midos kind of speed off, they're kind of short. 6, 7, and 8. Again, dealing with the dead. He says the Ramak says that dealing with the dead is very challenging for him. What does it mean dealing with the dead? So when you deal with the dead, so you're being a person that's let's say you work in the Chevra Kedisha or Mes Mitzvah or helping maybe bury someone who's dead, paying money. Sometimes you get a call that we don't have any money to bury someone, so that's a Mes Mitzvah, that's a mitzvah that's connected to the dead. What does it mean with Hashem? There's no level of Hashem that's dead. How could we deal with the dead and not be talking about Hashem? So he says kosher moed. He calls it very difficult, but he teaches what it means. All right, everyone. If there's no other questions, Laila Tov and Shavua Tov. Take care. Good Shabbos.